Africa, a land of ancient heritage, immense wealth, and enduring strength. But have you ever wondered why the world has tried over and over to overshadow its story? Or why it's still rising, despite the weight of centuries of exploitation? Africa is waking up. A new Africa. With the youngest population in the world, a median age barely over 20, Africa's youth stands in stark contrast to the aging continents where most sit over 30. Here, the heartbeat is faster, louder, relentless. It's the second largest continent, home to the richest man to have ever lived. It's the birthplace of giants, the tallest animals, the fastest, the most magnificent. Yet, it's a story the world has often chosen to forget. Today we're taking you back through time to a continent alive with more than 3,000 ethnic groups, speaking over 2,000 languages. But this video isn't here to just scratch the surface. It's an invitation to go deeper, to truly see Africa for what it was and what it's becoming. Imagine, millions of years ago, fossils scattered across the African landscape tell a story few are willing to believe. They trace our human lineage to this very land, stretching back over 7 million years. And then, our own species, Homo sapiens, begins to emerge, perhaps 350,000 years ago. From here, around 50,000 years ago, we embarked on the greatest migration in human history. The out-of-Africa migration, sending us across the globe. The Sahara wasn't always an endless ocean of sand. Picture it lush, green, teeming with life. Then, around 5000 BCE, the Earth's axis shifted and the Sahara began to dry. It became the desert we know today, driving early humans to the Nile Valley, where they planted seeds that would one day grow into Egypt, one of humanity's longest and most powerful civilizations. A civilization that would thrive, fall, and rise again, only to be conquered and integrated into the histories of Persians, then Alexander the Great, who saw Egypt as a prize worth crossing the world for. But Egypt was only one part of Africa's story. In North Africa, the mighty Carthaginians rose, masters of Mediterranean trade, who would ultimately face Rome in a battle for survival, and lose, their cities destroyed, their people scattered. And yet, Africa continued to shape history. Through centuries of exchange and transformation, Africa absorbed, adapted, evolved. The Roman Empire claimed North Africa, renaming it Africa Proconsularis, giving birth to the name the world now knows. Christianity spread, then Islam. Both faiths swept through lands and hearts, reshaping empires and trading routes, like those of the Sahel kingdoms in West Africa, where wealth poured through in the form of gold, salt, and slaves. By the time the world reached the Middle Ages, Africa was thriving in its own unique way. The Nok culture rose in Nigeria, crafting extraordinary terracotta statues. The Swahilis established bustling trade hubs along the eastern coast. The Mali Empire under Mansa Musa grew so rich that his mere presence in foreign lands caused currency to crash. But this wealth came at a cost. Outside influences watched, waiting to engage. And engage they did. For centuries, Africans were ripped from their homelands, thrown into the brutal Atlantic slave trade. Millions were stolen, millions perished, yet Africa remained strong. As the 1800s approached, the world's thirst for slaves began to decline. With that shift, African kingdoms like the Ashanti and Dahomey turned to other resources: timber, palm oil, gold, cocoa. Then came the Berlin Conference. Europe's partition of Africa was unleashed, slicing up a continent without a thought for the people who lived there. By 1914, 90% of Africa was under European control, with only Liberia and Ethiopia escaping colonial rule's grip. But no empire lasts forever. After World War II, Africa ignited in a wave of independence movements. Ghana became the first to break free in 1957. Soon, nation after nation reclaimed its land. And yet, freedom wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning of a new struggle. A struggle against borders drawn by strangers, against military dictatorships, against corruption bred by a century of foreign rule. In Rwanda, the scars of colonial manipulation would ignite a genocide. The Congo would suffer a war that, directly and indirectly, claimed over 5 million lives. Yet Africa pressed on, determined to build a future worthy of its past. Today, Africa stands at a crossroads. New investment flows into the continent, breathing life into its cities and its people. From China to the Middle East, nations look to Africa once more. But this time, the question is different. Will Africa rise on its own terms? Climate change looms, a new battle for survival. But this time, Africa is not alone in its fight. The world faces a choice to stand with this continent that gave birth to humanity itself. Africa's story is a tale of heartbreak and triumph, of beauty and strength. It's a story of a continent that has carried humanity's past and now holds its future. And if you thought the past was compelling, just wait until you see what comes next. The new Africa isn't just rising, it's unstoppable.